Hello everyone, it's Chaplain April. I wanted to do this video on Easter. I've been wanting to do it for a while and I'm just now getting the chance to do it. So I'm sorry it has been a minute since I have uploaded anything and I am still going to do that study probably next week, the rest of the fruits of the Spirit. But we had Easter about a month ago and Easter I absolutely love. It is my favorite holiday of the entire year. I love everything about it. I love the fact that it is the most important religious holiday for Christianity. I love the colors that come in around Easter time. I love spring. Spring is my favorite time of the year, my favorite season of the year. And that might have something to do with being raised in a tropical country where the weather was always kind of spring-like. Now where I live, we might, if we're lucky, get 2 weeks of spring. And that's a really sad thing for me because I love spring. I mean, as you can see here, I have my Easter lily. You know, things start blooming in the spring. We're done with the deadness and the cold and the harshness of winter. And things start blooming, tulips and flowers, and you know, things start coming out like the bunny rabbits. So I have a little bunny rabbit here, and they come out in the spring. You know, everything kind of comes out of hiding, and the eggs are, you know, they're a symbol of new life because the chicks hatch out of the eggs. So I'll go into this a little bit. I wanted to read the resurrection account because I said in the beginning of this that Easter is the most important Christian holiday, and that is because of the resurrection of Christ. And why is that? Because there were actual eyewitness accounts of his death, crucifixion. He was absolutely crucified. This really happened. He died. He was put in a tomb. But then he was gone from the tomb. He actually resurrected. And that is what changes Christianity from all the other religions out there, is these eyewitness accounts that this really truly did happen. That Jesus actually, you know, he predicted his crucifixion, his death, and his resurrection, and then it actually happened. So the difference is that the eyewitness accounts, and then on top of that, he transfigured on the Mount of Transfiguration to heaven. So he was not only alive on the earth, but he ascended to heaven. In other words, I want you guys to see that this is real. I'm going to do this in front of you. And I am alive and I am in heaven, seated at the right hand of the Father. That's what makes Easter so amazing. I mean, I love Christmas, you know, I honor God, Jesus's birth, but his resurrection was actually the most powerful thing that Jesus did. So I'm going to read in Matthew. There's a couple of accounts of Jesus' resurrection, and it is because different apostles' views of their account of what happened. So, you know, some people would say to me, well, those are contradictions because they're not exactly the same. Well, I would say to you, we could have a dinner here at this table, my dining room table. I could invite 8 people to dinner, and we could do something here. I don't know, have a talk or about a specific thing or whatever. And then each person could go away and write their account of what happened that night, and they would all be a little bit different because they're from a different perspective. You know, someone is seated here, another person is seated there. They might see something that someone else didn't, or Or, maybe they were paying attention at a time when someone said a certain thing, but the other person wasn't because they were talking to someone else. So to me, that's not a contradiction. That is another person that was there. It was their perspective. I don't see that as a contradiction in the Bible, in the scriptures. So we're going to read Matthew's account, and that is Matthew 28. And I'm just going to read until I feel like we're done. So, now after the Sabbath, as it began to dawn, the first day of the week, Mary Magdalene and the other Mary came to look at the grave. So Jesus is already crucified. If you can go back and read that if you choose. But Mary, they were coming to see Jesus's body and maybe do something, perfume it or do some sort of ritual. I don't know. And behold, a severe earthquake had occurred, for an angel of the Lord descended from heaven and came and rolled away the stone and sat upon it. And his appearance was like lightning, and his garment as white as snow. And the guards shook for fear of him and became like dead men. So the guards saw this happen, you guys. That an angel of the Lord descended from heaven. There was an earthquake. Like, this is, this is it. This is real. This happened. So he sat upon the stone, and his appearance was like lightning. His garment was white as snow. The guards shook, and the angel answered and said to the women, "Do not be afraid, for I know that you are looking for Jesus who has been crucified. He's not here, for he has risen, just as he said. Come, see the place where he was lying. And go quickly and tell his disciples that he has risen from the dead. And behold, he is going before you into Galilee. There you will see him. Behold, I have told you." So the angel is saying, Jesus predicted his death and resurrection. And here it is. Come and see where he was lying. So they go in there, they look. There's no one there. Jesus is not there because he is resurrected. And then he tells them he's going to see you in Galilee. So we're not just going to leave an empty tomb for you to look at. Jesus is actually going to reappear to you now. You saw him being crucified. You saw him on the cross. You know he died. You saw them take him down. There's no way he could have lived. I mean, his side was pierced. He was whipped and beaten. There's no way a body could live through that. So, here's the empty tomb. And they departed quickly from the tomb with fear and great joy, and ran to report it to his disciples. And behold, Jesus met them and greeted them. Okay, we're talking about two Marys. They met Jesus. They just saw his empty tomb. And they came up and took hold of his feet and worshipped him. Now, why would they do that? Because they knew beyond a shadow of a doubt that he was who he said he was, the Lord of Lords and the King of Kings. People don't just resurrect. It just doesn't happen. Then Jesus said to them, "Do not be afraid. Go and take word to my brethren to leave for Galilee, and there they shall see me." He's telling them the same exact thing that the angel just told them. Now, while they were on their way, behold, some of the guard came into the city and reported to the chief priest all that had happened. And when they had assembled with the elders and counseled together, they gave a large sum of money. So the guards are talking to the elders. They don't want this word to get out that Jesus resurrected. So the guards know, they saw it. But if this is true, then this is going to make his whole story true, and they don't want that to be the case. So they're going to try to cover it up. So anyway, I won't go into all that, but the disciples proceeded to Galilee, to the mountain which Jesus had designated, and when they saw him, they worshipped him, but some were doubtful. And Jesus came up and spoke to them, saying, "All authority has been given to me in heaven and on earth. Go therefore and make disciples of all nations." So he's giving them a commission. That's the Great Commission, to go out and tell the world about him, that this has happened. Now you have seen it with your own eyes. Go and tell the world that this has happened. So then I want to read about doubting Thomas, because he was one of the disciples we just read here where it said that some of them were doubtful. So, you know, you see him from afar and you think, is that really Jesus? Did he really resurrect? Is that really him? Is that someone acting like him? So we're going to read John chapter 20, verse, I think it's 25 and on. Okay. The other disciples therefore were saying to him, we have seen the Lord. But he said to them, Thomas said to them, unless I shall see in his hands the imprint of the nails, and put my finger into the place of the nails, and put my hand into his side, I will not believe. And after 8 days again his disciples were inside, and Thomas was with them. Jesus came, the doors having been shut, and stood in their midst, and he said, peace be with you. Now, I wanna talk about this verse for a minute, because they made a point to say the doors had been shut. So what happened was, Jesus was not in a physical body like he died in, okay? He resurrected, and now he's in a glorified body. What does that mean? It is, well, I mean, I can only imagine because I've not seen one, but he looks physical, but he's invisible. He can go through doors. It says the doors were shut, and he came in and stood in their midst. No one opened the door for him. So he's in a glorified body, more like a spirit, but you can still see him and everything. Then he said to Thomas, reach here your finger and see my hands, and reach here your hand and put it into my side, and be not unbelieving, but believing. Thomas answered and said to him, my Lord and my God. And Jesus said to him, because you have seen me, have you believed? Blessed are they who did not see and yet believed. So, if that is not the most amazing account, okay, so Jesus knows that Thomas is doubting, and he reaches out his hand and he says, see the nail prints in my hand. He reaches to his side and he says, feel where they pierced my side, and now you're going to believe. But blessed are those that did not have to see that. They still believed. They believed because I predicted my death, I predicted my resurrection, and now they have seen me after my death. So that is what makes Christianity different than any other religion. Jesus appears to his disciples in a glorified body after he died. And then he goes up to the mount and transfigures and all this stuff and goes up to heaven. You know, and one of the things that I get a lot from people like Facebook and social media and stuff, well, the Bible was written by men, and so you're just going to believe all this stuff, and it was written down by men. Well, how did you expect it to be written down? I mean, okay, the 10 Commandments were written in stone actually by the finger of God. Okay, we don't have those because a lot of people believe they are hidden, or they're somewhere where God doesn't want them to be seen or whatever. I don't know, in heaven or something. But that's the only time that he did that. After that, he inspired men. He was giving them the ideas and the words to write down. And we are trusting that they wrote down what God told them to write. So that's why we say it is inspired by God. So it is God's word. We call it God's word because these people that wrote it down did that knowing that it was coming from him. Okay, so in that case, then we know that these people were there. We know that this is historically accurate. There's other ways that these have been that these scriptures have been verified. Trying to think, there's a historian named Josephus. I wish I would have pulled that out, but he writes all this as accurate as accounts that really did happen. This happened. And if you look at the Bible as a historical book, then yes, you would know. So anyway, so Christians believe that this actually happened. So that is why Easter is the most important, because we're celebrating not only that Jesus was born and lived, but that he also died, and the prophecy of his death and resurrection has now come true. That's another thing about the Bible, is that if you look back at a lot of the prophecies, most the prophecies have come true. The ones that haven't yet are still to come, but they will happen. Okay, so another thing that I get on social media a lot, and I try not to debate, I really try, but not only do I enjoy it, and sometimes I like to play the devil's advocate. I know that I shouldn't do that. I know that that is not good, but it is so hard for me to not say anything sometimes. But I have had people message me and challenge me on a lot of these things. So one time, I think this was last year, I don't even know if I could pull the thing up or not. I don't even know the guy's name, but it was a friend of a friend who he saw me talking to this guy, and then he interjected and put all of his little 2 cents in. So then I started talking to him and da-da-da. So what was really sad is that this was a guy that had grown up in church, and then he had fallen away from God. And one of his arguments, he thought, was that, well, Christians don't even know that Easter's not about the bunnies and the eggs. And I thought, that's your big argument? That that's why you don't want to be in church, because people don't know that. And then he had a big thing about the dates. Jesus did not really, was not really born on that date, and Jesus did not resurrect on that date, and all these dates are wrong. Well, I thought to myself, does he really believe that Christians think that these dates are correct? I mean, what we're doing is we are choosing that as the day to celebrate it. Recently this year, my birthday's in April, and my family threw me a little party. Well, it wasn't on the date. My birthday was actually on a Wednesday, so we didn't want to celebrate it on Wednesday night. People are working and stuff. So we celebrated it on Saturday. So how would I have felt if I had gone to the party and then people said, well, today's not your real birthday, so why are you celebrating? I mean, to me, that's kind of what this guy was saying. It's like, no, we get it. We get that. This is the day that we have chosen as a community to celebrate the event. The fact is, the event happened. It doesn't matter what day it happened. It happened. That's what we are celebrating. And then I recently have watched some videos on YouTube of some Christian people that are very upset because as Christians we should not ever have a bunny or an egg in our sites that has nothing to do with Easter. And I'm scratching my head going, why does it matter? Bunnies come out in the spring, Easter's in the spring. Eggs and chicks are a sign of new life. So if I want to admire that fact, why can I not do so? It just happens to be around the same time that we celebrate Easter. It happens to be that we do it in the spring. I used to live in a 3-story house, and I had so many decorations for Easter because it's been my favorite holiday for a long time. I love the colors. I love pastel colors. This is a shirt that my family, my sister gave me for my birthday. I guess they realized that I love pastel colors. I love the colors. I love the season, and I love the holidays. So it all culminates into one thing. So I would have all 3 levels of that house. I had bunnies and eggs and everything because I love the colors. So someone might say, well, you're teaching the Bible and you shouldn't have anything to do with those bunnies and eggs. And I just think that is the dumbest argument I've ever heard, actually, because I know that in the past, pagans, did celebrate. I had a thing here I was going to read. So let me see. The most prominent secular symbol of the Christian holidays, the Easter Bunny. He was introduced to America by German immigrants. Well, that's okay with me. My grandmother was a German immigrant. It's believed to date back to the 13th century, and then you have the Easter parade and all this, and the Bible makes no mention of the Easter Bunny. I get that. I get it. And then the eggs, I don't want to read all of this because it's going to be too boring, but people during Lent would abstain from eating eggs, and so they would decorate them so that it was kind of like, oh wow, I get to eat these eggs now after Lent was over. And that's why they would paint them and decorate them. So I didn't print off a whole lot about the pagan rituals and stuff that they would do. That's the video that I was watching the other day. So this Christian guy is upset because the pagans used to, I don't know what they would do. I actually looked it up and now I can't even remember, but they would have some kind of a thing on Easter. So, and it had to do with the bunnies and the eggs and everything. So I am just going to let you guys know that I have no conviction in my spirit about bunnies and eggs. To me, they are symbols of spring and of new life. They're cute. So I don't have a problem with it. Now, Halloween, I don't really want to get into Halloween, but to me, that is a whole different thing, because I know that a lot of bad rituals and things still go on that holiday. But no one that I know is worshiping the bunnies and the eggs. None of us are doing that. We're worshiping Christ, his resurrection. These are symbols of spring and decorations, and that is it. So, I'm trying not to get into my really cynical, sarcastic mode that I can get into. I mean, I could really go on with that, but I don't think God doesn't really want me to do that right now. So I'm trying to keep this very, nice and not get upset and mean about it. So, what are people saying? Okay, I was going to say something about the calendars. So, yes, we understand that Easter is not on the date. So, just so you guys know, we're not even on the Jewish calendar. We are on the Gregorian calendar in the Western world, which is the Hebrew calendar. So, I'm going to read you a little bit about the Jewish calendar. The question is, what is the structure of the Jewish calendar? The answer, the Jewish calendar is based on the lunar month, which is a bit longer than 29 and a half days. Because of this, the months in the Jewish calendar are 29 or 30 days long. 12 lunar months usually amounts to 354 days, 11 days short of a solar year. In order for the festivals to stay in the correct season in relation to the solar year, an extra month is added every few years. The Jewish calendar is dated from what is supposed to have been the creation of the earth, 3,760 years and 3 months before the Christian era. So, to find the current year in the Jewish calendar, one must add 3,759 to the date on the Gregorian calendar. What we call 2018 is, in the Jewish calendar, the year 5778. This system, however, will not work to the exact month, since the Jewish year begins in autumn rather than midwinter. A Hebrew month begins in the middle of a month on our calendar today. Crops were planted in what we would call November and December and harvested in March and April. So the Jewish calendar months even have different names than our months. So it's Nisan, Iyar, Sivan, Tammuz, Av, Elul, Tishri, Markishvan, Kislev, Tebeth, Shabbat, and Adar. Those are the months on the Jewish calendar. The Jewish calendar, being lunar-based, invariably began with a new moon. To make up for the shorter year, an extra month was periodically inserted between the months Adar and Nisan. So this is a whole thing, you guys. You can, look it up yourselves and read all about this. I don't even have it down mentally, like what, but I do know that, with the changes in the calendar and everything, so how could it be the day of? Okay, it's not happening. So primarily, however, the months of the Jewish calendar had religious significance for the Jews and enabled them to commemorate the important events in their history. Each month's beginning was considered holy. To ancient Israel, the moon became a symbol of the nation itself. The sun eventually became symbolic of the Messiah. Since the moon produces no light of its own, the symbolism is especially appropriate. Israel was supposed to reflect the Messiah's light to the world. So the Jewish calendar remained unchanged for 400 years, blah, blah, blah. Okay. Usually, the ancient Hebrews did not record dates by citing the month and day of an event. So there you have it. Rather, dates were computed by reference to some significant event, such as the accession year of the reigning king or a patriarch's birth. In New Testament times, the Jews continued the Old Testament method of dating events by synchronizing them with events either in the religious calendar or within the secular sphere of the Roman world. Writers of the New Testament followed the same practice. It was only as the calendar reforms of Julius Caesar became embedded in the culture that people changed from that long-standing method to a more standardized system. So, in other words, long story short, it doesn't matter. The fact is that the events happened. It's a historical fact that Jesus was born, and he died, and he resurrected. So we pick a day that is within that season that we think it happened. Just as my family picked a day to celebrate my birthday. And I think the fact is that we are honoring it. We're paying homage to it. We are glorifying God for doing what he said he was going to do. He did what he said he was going to do. And his disciples even witnessed it. They even witnessed his glorified body. If that is not enough evidence for you to believe, then I really don't know what other evidence it could be. So someday we are going to go look back into the verifications of the scriptures and all of that. But not today. I just wanted to talk about Easter and what a wonderful time it is, and what a wonderful thing that our Lord did for us, and that we should recognize it, we should honor it. We're not worshiping the bunnies. Oh, I was going to show you this egg. Check this egg out that I used to put in my yard. Oh my gosh. Okay, so I had 3 of these. This one's green. I have a yellow one. And then I had another color. But what would happen was we have so much wind, these eggs would go flying across the yard. So I never really put them out anymore. But I can't get rid of them. They're just too cool. So when people say things like this about the Easter Bunny and the pagans and all that, it just makes me want to get like the biggest Easter Bunny I could find and blow it up bigger than my house and put it in my front yard. That does not mean that I am not a Christian and that I do not believe in God and that I am worshiping the bunny. No, never. So I think we need to not be ridiculous about it, you know, and let us appreciate things. And so anyway, that's all I'm going to say. I'm going to shut my mouth. And, you know, I love the Easter parade, but I can never get anyone to watch it with me. I end up watching it by myself. So that was just a little, you know, insight into my life, maybe. So I hope you guys appreciate Easter, you appreciate what Christ did, and I will be working on love, joy, and peace for our next study. You guys take care.